Best case for Oregon, worst case for Oregon. What are we feeling?
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. Will Oregon repeat its national rankings on offense and defense? Could Heisman talk get involved? That is all coming up on today's show, which is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances today with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So, in the absence of recruiting news, we switch to my next favorite offseason topic, schedule talk. So, I want you to drop in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter. My insiders send me messages. However you want to get in touch with me, there are a number of ways. Best case, worst case scenario for the Ducks this year. I think best case scenario is 11-1. I would be so unbelievably, ecstatically thrilled. I'm not making my record prediction today, by the way. I need things to marinate for a little bit more time, maybe check in with a couple other Locked On hosts in fall camp before we get to that point. But I think best case scenario for the Ducks is 11-1. And that Penn State game, by the way, according to our friends at FanDuel, that line is Penn State minus 4.5. Now, I'd have to go and double check the tape, but I believe when I talked to Zach Sako of Locked On Nittany Lions on this very program about what that line would be, he thought it would be 6-7. I believe I said 4-5. Someone can fact check me on that. I might spend my Friday night doing that because that's the active social life that I lead. Anyway, so Oregon plus 4.5. That's the only game they're probably going to be an underdog in all season long. Now, as we know, Oregon famously has never lost a game in which they were favored by a sizable amount. I can't think of any examples in particular. Not in the last couple of years. It's never happened, which means Oregon's going 11-1. That does mean, based on the spreads that we have seen from FanDuel, that Vegas thinks Oregon's best case scenario is 11-1. I don't think that because Vegas thinks that. Great minds just think alike. That's the way this rolls out. So if Oregon goes 11-1 this year, I would be so the excitement level for 2026 would go through the roof because you'd be looking at a team that lost 57% of its production from its number one ranked team in Big Ten champion season from a year ago, and would go out and lose probably one game against a bona fide national championship contender on the road who's off a bye. If that's the only game Oregon loses this year, the excitement level should go through the roof. Not that Oregon shouldn't generally be excited about what Dan Lanning can do. I think he wins a national championship with the Ducks within the next 5 years. I'd be surprised and frankly disappointed if he did not. But with this roster and a new quarterback and all the young talent, if he is able to navigate the schedule, which is very favorable, admittedly, if he navigates it to 11-1, it'll be the best coaching job of his tenure so far. He came in right away, Dan Lanning, and I thought 2022 was a better team than 2021, the last year of the Cristobal administration. I thought 23 was better than 22, and 24 was better than 23. I think it's tough for 25 to be a better overall team than last year because last year's team was insanely good. Beat the national champions, of course. But if Oregon goes 11-1, I think you will have seen a lot of really good situational football and coaching from Dan Lanning and his staff, which, of course, in the first couple of years was the biggest weak spot on Dan Lanning's resume. So I think 11-1 is best case scenario. I'd be ecstatic if they got to that point. Heck, maybe I'd even feel differently about their national championship hopes for this year. On the other side, worst case scenario. Now, I struggle with this schedule because off the top, their preseason win total is 10.5. That's tied for the highest number given to any team in the country this year. I think that confidence level from the odds makers is based on Dan Lanning and the way that Oregon has recruited. I think it's incredibly fair. I think it's also based on the schedule. this year's team, last year's schedule, I bet that win total is 9.5. But alas, that's not the situation that we've got here. So I keep trying to rationalize in my head what the realistic worst case scenario is. Like actual full out worst case scenario. Well, worst case is Dante Moore looks like the exact same guy. I don't think this is happening, just to be clear. This is worst case scenario. Worst case is Dante Moore is the same guy he was at UCLA, and they've got to make the switch to Austin Novosad. Now, the good news in this horrific hypothetical, are any of us lacking confidence that Austin Novosad's a starting caliber quarterback? Hasn't gotten the chance yet. Kind of looks like he can be that sort of guy. At the very least, he looks like he could be good enough to win you some games. So then that comes down to the question of where Oregon's floor is this year, barring, a barrage of injuries like Utah suffered a couple of years ago under Kyle Whittingham. Who do you think, and I want to hear from you guys and know what your thoughts are on Oregon's schedule. If you were to say the floor on this team is 8-4, which is where I want to go, because you have a new quarter. There are just a lot of new things. Talented, yes, but still very new and learning as they go. Where are the 4 losses? Because I don't know. Something truly shocking and stunning would have to happen for Oregon to not start 4-0. They've lost 1 game at Autzen Stadium. And by the way, I know that, the past iterations of the Ducks weren't as good as, what Oregon had in 2024, as I mentioned. And I think this team will be a slight step back from last year. I'd still probably take 2025 Ducks over 2022. Even though Bo Nix was the quarterback there, and obviously I'd take him over Dante Moore, who I haven't seen yet. And I know that Bo Nix is capable of being a Heisman finalist. More on that subject later on today's show. But still, the amount of talent on this 2025 team, and when you factor in the coaching staff, is a heck of a lot better now than they were a few years ago. This staff is not going to have an Oregon State type meltdown or poor situational management like they had against Washington. It was all really good last year. I mean, Dan Lanning changed. Don't forget, Dan Lanning changed college football by putting 12 guys on the field, and they said, oh, we need to make a rule to stop that. He wasn't doing that in his first year as a head coach. So if you were to say the floor, and that's why I put the floor at 9-3, is I don't know where, like, every single thing would have to go against the Ducks to wind up going 8-4. Because I think 4-0 should be a given. Let's say Penn State's 1 loss, and then Indiana, Rutgers, Wisconsin, at Iowa, Minnesota, USC, at Washington. I could see them losing at Washington, rivalry game. Washington will be improved from a year ago. Indiana at Iowa, maybe. Maybe USC kind of figures it out. USC's not a horrible team. I don't know about USC's quarterback, Jaden Maiava. Their defense, though, they've got a good defensive coordinator there. They've got some offensive talent. I think Lincoln Riley still knows how to call plays. Maybe, but even if you give those teams more credit than Vegas is, because Oregon's favored by 13.5 against USC, 14.5 against Indiana, 12.5 against Washington. Yes, it's all hypotheticals, of course. Let's say they were to lose a couple of those games. I just don't see how this team could go 7-5 on the schedule. I really, really don't. So I'll put the floor at 8-4 for the season, but that's like, you get in big games, they get close, and you lose at Iowa, you lose at Washington, you lose at Penn State, and then you lose to either Indiana or USC. I don't think they're going to be there. I think my final record prediction will come down somewhere in between the floor and the ceiling. Hint, hint. I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments below. So, does the offense put up the same numbers? Does the defense put up the same numbers? Is it worse? Is it better? Let's talk about that next. First, this episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app, folks. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth, which is very important. We all want to be financially well off and on the right track and staying on those railroad tracks. Monarch Money is there to help you get there. Do you have that one financial goal you've wanted to hit for a while? Whatever it is, Monarch is here to help. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Check them out at monarchmoney.com. Mailbag, open. Spencer scale of agreement, open. Trivia questions that I try to answer live on the show, open. And make sure you continue sending all of those things. So, this one came in from one of the Locked On Ducks insiders out there. Priority mailbag access, other perks as well. Link in the description below for a free 14-day trial. Where do you think the offense and defense will finish nationally? And where do you think it'll be in relation to last year? So, in 2024, the Oregon offense finished, we'll just talk points per game here because that's what matters most at the end of the day. There's always the bend, don't break defenses and such, or offenses that move it into the red zone and can't get into the end zone. Oregon was 17th offensively last year at just a touch under 35 points per game, 16th defensively at 19.5 points per game. So I think it's pretty reasonable with the schedule to expect that Oregon statistically winds up in the top 20 on both sides of the ball again. Do they get inside? Do they break through into the top 10? Probably not. Just because, as I've mentioned many times this offseason, there's just a lot to replace from last year. If last year's team wasn't finishing at the end of the year inside the top 10, then I can't expect that this year's team can do it. 2026, maybe. We'll talk about that when the time comes. But let's just look offensively. At Oregon's schedule, who's the toughest defense they're going to play? Probably Penn State. I think that's pretty clear, frankly. I'll go Penn State first, Iowa second. Those are legitimately tough defensive games where Oregon could be held, if they don't play well, under 20 points. If they play to their potential, they'll be in the low to mid 30s as they have in a lot of other big games in the past. Conversely, before I go over to the defensive side of the ball, when you look up and down at the defenses, I think Minnesota plays sneaky nice defense, but that game is at Austin Stadium. I don't know that Minnesota is going to be able to come in and just, thump Oregon's offense and keep them in check entirely. But where else is the defense that, is on paper expected to hold Oregon under 30 points in a game? I think that would really come down to the Ducks and Dante Moore more than anything. Like, he is, of course, the biggest wild card offensively for Oregon going into this year because the offensive line, it's new, but it's very veteran with the guys that they have. We know what they've been in their college careers and mostly what to expect there. Plus, the depth, I think, is really good. Like, Elite Terry's just done a really, really good job. Kenyon Sadiq at tight end. That dude's a monster. The receivers go 6 deep. Mekhi Hughes at running back with Noah Whittington. Pretty formidable tandem. I don't have any questions there. The only question I have the offensive line's a slight question, but the biggest one is very clearly, will Dante Moore start to realize his full potential? And if he does, guns blazing, man. They could be really, really fun to watch for the next couple of years with him at the helm because he can just make a lot of special throws. But he's got to do the other stuff. He's not Ty Thompson, but there is a similarity to where the ability to throw a beautiful ball or make special throws physically isn't the problem. The problem is reading a defense and making the right decisions. And Dante is certainly far more advanced than Ty, who's not playing quarterback anymore. But we also saw from his time at UCLA, he has plenty of room to grow, but I think he's in a really good situation there. So offensively, Montana State, Oklahoma State, Northwestern, Oregon State. The Beavs could be better. Trent Bray's a good defensive mind. Is he going to come into Autzen Stadium with the talent Oregon State does have and hold Oregon under 30 points? I don't think so. Indiana was sneakily good on defense last year. They didn't have a super tough schedule, but they did put up really good numbers. Again, that game is at Autzen Stadium. Maybe the Rutgers. You know what? I'll throw this out there. Not as like an outright upset win, but a game that could get way more uncomfortable than anybody wants it to. Oregon's got to go all the way across the country to Piscataway, New Jersey on October 18th after the Indiana game and play Rutgers. There's nothing special or great about Rutgers. I mean, Washington lost there last year. Washington wasn't that good, but I mean, they weren't that bad, but they weren't that good. And it's a long trip. Piscataway can get weird. Schiano, I think, is a little bit more of a defensive guy. Maybe Oregon only puts up 24, 27 points in that game. But maximum potential, again, Wisconsin, I think Oregon will score more points against Wisconsin this year, at least, than they did last year, if not because they're at home, but also because that game was just that game was weird. They have a bye before they go to Iowa. That'll be tough. Like if Oregon scores 30 points on the road against Iowa, that'd be a legitimate accomplishment. Like, not trying to make a joke or anything like that. That'd be pretty legit. But then Minnesota, USC, Washington, Minnesota and USC are at home. USC's defense will be solid. I don't know if they'll be great. Like, I don't think Oregon's offense matches its output from last year exactly. I don't think it'll be really far off. I think you'd be looking at like 33 or 32 points a game instead of 35. I think that's more than good enough. Defensively, again, like, where's the offense that scares you? USC's offense was actually the reason it wasn't better last year. The defense was pretty good. Minnesota's not explosive on offense. They run the football really well. They've got a great running back, Darius Taylor. Washington, we know, is going to be balanced. I still feel like they're a year or two away, but they will be significantly improved. Rutgers and Wisconsin's offenses don't scare me a ton. I've seen Billy Edwards Jr., who's Wisconsin's quarterback, come to Autzen before. It didn't go particularly well for him. Indiana and Penn State, they can put up some points. But again, in the first four, Oklahoma State doesn't know who their quarterback's going to be. Northwestern's got Preston Stone, but I don't know if they've got a lot around him. He's a former SMU quarterback who's actually pretty good. Montana State, FCS, of course. Oregon State, Malik Murphy's a huge upgrade at quarterback. Do they have the weapons on the outside to push the ball up and down the field consistently? I don't think so. So, I mean, 19 points. I think Oregon should be able to hold their opponents on average under 20 points per game. I don't think they go under 15. I think that's a next year sort of thing. But under 20, yeah, which would be really good. So, nationally, yeah, I think they'll rank in the I think they'll be similar to where they were last. Maybe instead of 17th and 16th, maybe like just inside the top 25. If they do that, I think they'd be just fine and a lock for at least 10 wins. Roger sends this one in. Question for the SSA. Do you see a world where Tuioti leads the Big Ten in sacks because of the attention Mateo will get? I see where your head's at, Roger. I really, and I like Tuioti. I mean, I'm a fan. Big Tatum Tuioti fan. This is a 2. There have been a lot of great defensive ends to come through the Big Ten and other conferences before who garner a lot of attention. But the good thing about those guys, and this applies to Mateo on Oregon, they're not the only talented players up front. And no matter how much attention a guy gets, Kayvon Thibodeau got more attention than anybody else. And the rest of the defensive line was significantly worse than he was. And that's partially because he was just so incredibly good. No one else could really consistently generate pressures. And guess what? He still led the team in sacks that year. So some guys are just different. Mateo's one of those guys. I think he's the best edge rusher that Oregon's had since Thibodeau. And I think if you made an all-Oregon team of the last 10 years, you'd probably have those two guys as your edge players. You'd be in a pretty good place if you did that. So, yeah, I'll go with a 2. Like Tuioti, though, I do get where your head's at there. Actually, I got to downgrade it. That's a 1. That's a 1. I'm too bullish on Mateo to say that Tuioti will outsack him this year, but that'd be cool. That'd be cool. If I'm wrong on a take, I give a 1. Roger, you come and hit me back with that at the end of the year, and I will take an L here on the pod, shall we say. Let's talk about the Heisman Trophy. All right, this came in from Jared for Spencer Scale of Agreement. During the 2025 season, there will be at least 2 weeks where 2 Oregon Ducks will be listed in the top 10 Heisman poll from any major outlet that does that sort of thing. 2 weeks with 2. Look, if you'd said 1 Duck, my number would be higher. You said 2. Who are the 2? Like, one of them clearly would be Dante Moore, right? Garners the most attention at quarterback, should be set up for success to have a good year. And I'm excited to watch that. I'm really excited to see what I know that we've seen a little bit of him in his career, but we haven't seen him at Oregon yet. It could be really special and fun. Really, really could. I'm stoked to watch it. I don't place Heisman expectations on a guy starting a full season for the first time, presuming he stays healthy, God willing. Joe Burrow, for instance, went to LSU in 2018, started there, and they were a good team. And then in 2019, they were the best team in the history of college football. I will argue that from now until the end of time. I do not give anything. I do not care what people would say about, well, the 90s Miami and Nebraska and the defense was loaded. Man, when you have got an NFL quarterback who is top 3 in the league, most likely, and 2 receivers who are also top 3 in the league, and they're on the same team, I'm sorry. I don't care if you're putting Deion Sanders out there. Man, you got to have 5 Deion Sanders to cover all of those guys, and nobody can do it. So I'm of the belief 2019 LSU is the best team in the history of college football. I think you put them on the field against anybody else, they're going to win. They were good in the trenches. They were good enough on defense, but Burrow with Jamar Chase, and I mean, they were on pace in that playoff game against Oklahoma. Granted, it was Oklahoma, but still, they were on pace to put up 100 points. They had 49 in the first half. Like, it was silly. It was completely silly. Anyway, we got a little sidetracked here. So, bringing that back to Dante Moore, that was Joe Burrow's second season at LSU. I'm not saying Dante Moore will do that, but career path-wise, my expectations for him, go look at Joe Burrow. Let's see. Let's pull up his 2018 college stats at LSU. He had a good year. Wasn't great, but it was good. He completed only 58% of his passes, only threw 16 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, and threw for just under 2,900 yards. If you threw a few more touchdowns in there and maybe completed a few more passes and put that for Dante Moore this year, Oregon's winning at least 10 games. I would take that 16-5 touchdown interception ratio. I don't know why that number was so low. That's a little bit strange. And then he explodes the next year for over 5,600 yards, 60 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. That's awesome. Oh, man. That is an odd. Completing 76% of his passes, by the way. So I don't bring up those numbers to say that's what Dante Moore is going to do. I bring that up to say the best quarterback season we've ever seen came in his second year with the Tigers. So I think Dante Moore will be good this year. He comes back next year. Mark my words, I will be full steam ahead on the hype train for Oregon to win the national championship and for Dante Moore to win the Heisman. I will be right here on this very program, presuming all of those things go according to plan. So if Dante Moore were to be one of these Ducks who pop into the Heisman discussion this year, and he's playing in an offense that's produced consecutive Heisman finalists as a quarterback. Nobody else in the country can say that. So, sure, that's not completely ridiculous. Who's the second one? Is Mateo popping off for sacks? Is Kenyon Sadiq going crazy? Is DeCorian Moore a freshman sensation? Is the 3 Oregon Ducks that are, or the 2 that are on the FanDuel Heisman odds, Dante Moore is actually number 11, which I think is too high, but it's cool that he's there. Dante Moore is at number 11 going into the season, and then way, way down the list is Mekhi Hughes. So, is that where, like, I'm curious. Jared, send me a note. and let me know like who you think those players could be. I'm again putting this at a 1 on Spencer's scale of agreement because I just inside the top 10 is at the highest standard. No, but you got to remember it's a big world, like the ocean in Finding Nemo. Okay, the big blue. Okay, this is the big blue of college football. Lots of guys out there that can go and have Heisman caliber seasons. Ohio State, well, probably just Jeremiah Smith. Maybe their quarterback could, but they've got a former 5-star quarterback in Julian Sayin. Maybe he'd be in there. Like, that would probably be more likely on paper than the Ducks having to. So I'm curious who you think the second one could be. Hughes would probably be the most likely one. Because I think the receiving core is going to be really well spread out. I think Dante Moore will find someone, maybe DeCorian Moore, who he likes a lot in the absence of Evan Stewart. Maybe it's Gary Bryant, maybe Justice Lowe, maybe it's Kenyon Sadiq. Who knows? I think it'll be a pretty well spread out distribution of players that are routinely catching passes from Dante Moore. I think you could see more receivers have a significant season statistically than has ever happened in Dan Lanning's tenure so far. So, yeah, a couple of 1s on the SSA today. Boy, that doesn't happen very often. But hey, whether it's 1 or whether it's a 10, I love the takes. Keep thinking of them. Keep them coming. So, wrapping today with something that I am truly starting to enjoy because I'm a trivia junkie. And so, when I can combine 2 of my favorite things, my show about Oregon and trivia, well, I'm kind of all about that. So let's wrap with some trivia questions. Bud's got a few of them in there. How many Oregon players have placed in the top 3 in the Heisman voting? This should be pretty easy to figure out. I actually don't think Dylan Gabriel was top 3. I'm pretty sure Gabriel was 4. So Bo Nix, Marcus Mariota, LaMichael James, Harrington had to have been in there. I don't think Achilles Smith was ever a Heisman finalist. Now, I wasn't around during that era, so if I missed that, then I think I get a little bit of a pass. I'll go 4. Harrington, LaMichael, Mariota, and Bo Nix. How many Oregon players have received Heisman votes in multiple years? Ooh, multiple years. Well, received votes. That's tough. I gotta go. I'll probably say 2. I'm sure LaMichael got. I know obviously he was a finalist one year, but in 2011 he probably got some votes. He got hurt, so that didn't help his chances. But Bo Nix 23 and 20 or 22 and 23. Yeah, he probably got a couple of votes in there, maybe. So I'll say 2. How many Oregon players and coaches have been inducted in the College Football Hall of Fame? Oh. Well, I don't even. I don't know what the eligibility line is for when a player becomes eligible to go into the Hall of Fame. I mean, Haloti Ngata should be in there. Joey Harrington should be in there. Dan Fouts should probably be in there. Mariota should be in there. LaMichael should be in there. But are Mariota and LaMichael eligible? I feel like I saw something about that not that long ago. I'll go with 5. I'll go with 5 as my guess there. Last one. How many Oregon players have been inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Ooh. Those last 2 are stumpers, man. That's tough. I applaud you for those questions because that's tough. Pro Football Hall of Fame. Justin Herbert's going to get there one day. Penei Sewell will probably get there one day too. The Pro Football Hall of Fame. Haloti Ngata should be in if he's not already. I don't think the number's huge. Maybe I'm lowballing. I'll go with 3. Make sure you send me the answers to any of the trivia questions you sent in, but I'm here for it. So have a great weekend. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.